Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone in the franchise world. My name is Paul Segreto, and this is Franchise Today. Yes, we're back and stronger than ever before as we look ahead to our sixth season on Blog Talk Radio. Hard to believe, 6 years on the air. You know, after a year of transition, both business and personal, I'm excited by what we have in store for the franchise community on Franchise Today. And, of course, I'd like to thank all our loyal listeners. It was interesting to note when I was looking back at the stats of Franchise Today that we've had over 165,000 listens of all of our shows over the past 24 months. You know, of course, we'll remain true to our mission, which is to be a resource for franchise professionals and to showcase franchise best practices. The show will remain non-promotional, but we'll be adding a new feature to Franchise Today called the Franchisor Spotlight. And periodically we'll have as guests franchisors that are making a difference, franchisors that are innovative, franchisors that are making it happen in such a way that they're standing out from the crowd. Our interviews with these franchisors will focus on the how in order that others can learn from the experience. We'll also revive our You've Got to Be Kidding segment, where we talk about some of the crazy and sometimes comical things that happen in franchising. Yes, it's the lighter side, and I believe it's essential as we battle the continuing attacks on the franchise model. We'll also be bringing back the IFA Corner, where we'll talk about IFA events and also their fantastic efforts on Capitol Hill and across various state governments. Their efforts have truly been fantastic. But we still have a long way to go, and I absolutely thank Steve Caldera and the entire team at the IFA for all that they do for franchising. So I implore you to do your part and join the Franchise Action Network. You may do so at franchiseactionnetwork.com, and if you're not yet a member of the IFA, please contact me at segreto.paul@gmail.com or go directly to the IFA website at www.franchise.org. I'm also excited to announce that we'll be reviving two very popular series on Franchise Today, the Franchise Finance series and the Franchise Legal series. As you know, we've already done 3 series on Franchise Finance and 4 in the Legal series, and both have been multi-week shows. Matter of fact, the last 2 Franchise Legal series were 8 consecutive weeks of very riveting legal information. And we look forward to make them even better in the coming year. We'll be adding a regular segment of the show that will also focus on topical tips such as marketing, social media technology, and more. And all those will be delivered in short 3 to 5 segments by industry professionals. So stay tuned for more details. You know, certainly our reach at Franchise Today cannot be possible without strategic partners. And I'm excited to continue our strategic partnership with Franchise Update. I thank you to Gary Gardner, Therese Stilgan, and Diane Phibbs for your commitment and support, and I look forward to building upon this relationship to be an even greater resource for the franchise community, just as they have done with their great conferences and publications. You know, to that end, on next week's show, we'll focus on the upcoming Franchise Update Leadership and Development Conference. Returning again as my guest to discuss the conference will be Greg Voinovich. He's the Chief Development Officer at Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, but he's also this year's conference chairman. And this should be a very compelling show, not only about the conference, but about franchise development issues. Given Greg's experience, I'm sure it'll be a very informative show. And if you haven't yet registered for the Leadership and Development Conference, I encourage you to do so today. The event is in Atlanta, October 15th to the 17th, and the website is franchisedevelopmentconference.com. Or just pick up the phone, call 800-289-423, extension 216. So before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to talk briefly about California Governor Jerry Brown's veto of Senate Bill 610. You know, siding with corporate chain stores that warned of degraded service. Governor Jerry Brown on Monday vetoed a bill giving franchise owners more power in business transactions. The legislation sought to alter the relationship between parent companies and the franchisees who operate individual businesses, with supporters saying the bill would reduce franchisors' authority to rigidly dictate the terms under which franchisees operate. In his veto message, Brown noted that the two sides were far apart in the debate over the bill and suggested it's in the best interest of all that a concerted effort be made to reach a more collaborative solution. To use the words of fellow franchise professional Ron Feldman, he said this was very courageous on the part of Jerry Brown. You know, proponents, including the American Association of Franchisees and Dealers and the California Labor Federation, said it's too easy for franchisors to cancel contracts or block sales of franchises. Among other provisions, Senate Bill 610 would have raised the standard for refusing to renew a contract for good cause to substantial and material breach of the franchise agreement. Brown said he had doubts about the change, and he stated, while the good cause standard is common and well understood, the standard provided by this bill is new and untested. The bill narrowly passed legislature, surmounted criticism from opponents who said the bill was vaguely worded and warned it would undercut a business model promising consistency across various far-flung locations. An organization representing franchisors launched an advertising campaign warning that the bill would radically change the franchise business model and endanger health and safety. And, of course, that was from our friends at the International Franchise Association. Last, Brown said he was open to changing the law to give more protections to franchisees if they are indeed unacceptable or predatory practices by franchisors. He stated, I need, however, a better explanation of the scope of the problem, so I'm certain the solution crafted will fix those problems and not create new ones. And I, for one, am happy that in the decision that Governor Brown made. So with that behind us, I'm honored to introduce today's guest, Mary Kennedy Thompson. She became president of Mr. Rooter Corporation in October 2006. She came to Mr. Rooter from national franchisor Cookies by Design, where she was president of the Franchisor Corporation. She came into franchising as a franchisee first when in 1994 she opened a Cookies by Design franchise in the great city of Austin, Texas. In the next 3 years, she opened 2 additional locations. As a multi-unit franchise owner, Mary led the company in market penetration and sales, earning awards for Top Performer, Outstanding Customer Service, and Masters Award. In 2000, after selling her business, she was recruited to the home office to build the first field program for site visits and training, and during that time also created and taught the first marketing training programs for franchisees. Once promoted to executive director, she led the largest team in the home office for supply chain management, training and development, field coaching, customer service, and product development. In 2003, she earned her Certified Franchise Executive certification from the International Franchise Association. Promoted to president of the company in 2004, Mary's initiatives resulted in alliances with Universal Studios, a new website that provided an immediate increase in sales, and renewed franchisee-franchisor relations. At the end of her first year as president of Mr. Rooter Corporation, U.S. Business Review selected Mary as one of its 2007 Editor's Choice Executives of the Year. Today, Mr. Rooter is the fastest-growing plumbing franchise with more than 336 locations worldwide. In 2014, Mary was promoted to Executive Vice President of the Dwyer Group, while also retaining her current role as President of Mr. Rooter. As Executive VP, she provides support to the CEO in the daily activities and operations of the company and its subsidiary brands. She's also past chairman of the International Franchise Association's Vet Fan Committee and still a sitting member of the committee. The Vet Fan program, as we know, provides incentives and discounts for honorably discharged U.S. veterans to buy franchises. As a former officer in the Marine Corps, this is very important to Mary, and with that, I welcome Mary to Franchise Today.
Thank you, Paul. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I can't believe that it's, I guess I'll call it relaunch jitters. I feel as nervous and excited as I did almost 6 years ago when I first launched, a podcast, which was then, I think it was then called Franchising and Social Media, and then it eventually or quickly turned into Franchise Essentials, and then we settled in with Franchise Today as we really wanted to get, the word about best practices and become a professional resource to all within franchising. So,
please allow me to congratulate you on 6 years. That's amazing. 165,000 listens. That's a lot of talking, and that's a lot of listening. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It is a lot of talking. It is a lot of listening, and it really wouldn't be possible without individuals like yourself, and of course Dina Dwyer Owens, who's been on the show a couple of times, the IFA and Steve Caldera, the legal community, which I really think propelled Franchise Today to new heights by coming on the air and giving of their very valuable time, but talking about best practices from a legal perspective. I think we've done somewhere around 60 or 70 shows just on legal issues that have ranged anywhere from creative financial performance representation to broker issues to e-discovery to data protection to franchise sales best practices, and the list goes on and on. And, I really value their time, and it's amazing. One attorney in particular, and I won't name because I know he's embarrassed by this, actually spent about 12 hours with me preparing for a 1-hour show. And I got to tell you, at the rates that they charge, you could just imagine, the type of investment that he made. So I really, my hat's off to him and the entire legal community. And it's been a great run. It's been a great run.
Well, that's why I think you're a resource for franchise professionals. For me as a franchise professional, having as many resources at my fingertips as I can for growing and getting better and getting smarter and helping and serving our franchisees, I think this is a great resource for those people.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was really interesting when I looked at the stats and saw that the shows just over the last 2 years have been listened to over 165,000 times. And then as I renewed my blog, Franchise Essentials, from what used to be a corporate site, and I didn't want to lose the branding, so I just spun it into my corporate blog about 1.5 years ago. That blog, which is entirely a franchise professional's resource as well, has been viewed over 135,000 times in the last 2 years as well. So I'm very honored, flattered, and absolutely flabbergasted as well.
Well, I very much appreciate what you do. I read your blog every single week, and I have to agree with you in your applauding of Governor Brown's decision on the Senate Bill 610. I too agreed with what he said, and we had one of our franchisees, Sonda Kitchen, who is quite involved in the International Franchise Association. She's one of my top franchisees from Sonoma, California. She had believed so strongly in this that she had also gone and spoken to a lot of her legislators to talk about why it's not good for franchising. And here at the Dwyer Group, our paychecks say thanks to our franchisees who make all things possible. We know that we build a company with our franchisees. And in the United States, 1 out of every 8 jobs in the United States comes from franchising. We want to do the right thing as franchisors. And the clause that says for good cause is common and it's well understood. And trying to change that really posed a lot of problems. And so I applaud Governor Brown's very brave decision to look out for small business, because that's what we are, franchising a small business.
Yeah, there's just, too many industries, politicians and otherwise, for various reasons, that refuse to give, franchising the position of being, a cornerstone of the entire economy, and certainly being, small business. I know I had my issues with American Express 5 years ago when they started the Small Business Saturday program, and as I was recommending to all our clients' franchisees to support that program and get involved, I was aghast when one of them came back to me and said, "You didn't read the fine print. It says franchises excluded." And I kind of went, as I do, a little bit on a tirade, and tried calling them. Of course, couldn't get to anybody, so I reached out on social media, and I was thankful that a couple of journalists from the Wall Street Journal and Inc. magazine and Entrepreneur magazine picked up on it and wrote some interesting articles. And even then, American Express wasn't responding. And it wasn't until it was 2 days after Thanksgiving, which is when Small Business Saturday is. It was that morning I went on the Twitter feed, and I just basically called for all franchising to stop taking the American Express card. And it was interesting, and it gives you an idea how powerful social media is. I got a response from an executive VP sitting in a cab who was, I guess, oversaw the entire program, begging me to retract, which I didn't, but I said I would be open to talking with them. And we had a great meeting about 2 weeks later with like 11 or 12 senior executives from American Express. And quite frankly, Mary, they just didn't get it about franchising. They really thought, and these are very educated and experienced people, they really thought that franchising was the McDonald's of the world, where franchisees, make multi-million-dollar incomes, where the franchisor pays for all the marketing, and therefore, small business owners can't even compete. And it was really an educate. Oh, it blew me away.
Yeah, I think about, you mentioned I came into franchising as a franchisee first, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I came out of the military. No one in my family, as far back as I could go in my family, ever had their own business. I was the first entrepreneur in my family going back at least 8 generations that we knew of. Wow. And I could not have done it. I could not have done it without the franchisor because there were a lot of things I didn't know. I needed systems to fall in on. I needed to learn and understand how to run that business. I needed help on learning to understand what a P&L was and what a balance sheet was. And my franchisor is the one who trained me, taught me, showed me how to do it, and I took every penny we owned and put it into our businesses. And it created great wealth for our family. We could not have done it. I could not have done it without their help. And I tell my franchisees, the day I forget what it feels like or felt like to have been a franchisee is the day I get out of this business, because they are the engine that drives our brand.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, with the stuff going on with the minimum wage laws and what was going on in Seattle, I think a lot of those, politicians and lawmakers just didn't understand, the franchise model. Just like American Express did. Well, I'm happy to hear, American Express has been making improvements. They have been letting franchises involved. Tom Epstein over at Franchise Payment Network has helped a lot. I've driven it. A lot of people and have latched on in social media and helped support it. So, it truly shows that together, we can make a difference. So, with respect to franchising and these different things, let me jump ahead to, the recent, ruling or opinion of the National Labor Relations Board, because, obviously the Dwyer Group, you have many, many franchisees that are out there. And to even think about being considered as their employer really sends shivers up my spine. So if you would care to, I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
Well, I always like that saying that says franchising is about thinking nationally but acting locally. What works about franchising is that you're in business for yourself but not by yourself. And so you're out there, you are determining who you're hiring. You are determining how you're hiring them. You are deciding as the franchisee who you want to invite into your home, so to speak, your business home. And the franchisor provides the systems and the processes for how to best interact with the customer. And so what's beautiful about that is you don't have a bunch of managers out there that have no skin in the game and that are not intimately involved with everything in their business. They are the business. we're providing those systems. And so what scares me about the NLRB and what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that the franchisor is determining who's hired, who's fired, how they're paid, how they're done. That's not how it works. If that's how it works, we could have just gone and hired a bunch of managers and be running it out there. I truly believe that franchising is a great American dream because it takes somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur and takes somebody who wants to have their own business and gives them a path to follow to be successful in their business. It doesn't tell them who to hire and fire. It doesn't tell them how to do that. They determine that based on their needs in their local market. And so what I don't think the NLRB understands, I think they think that the franchisor is pulling those strings. We shouldn't and don't and can't. And if we did, why would we do franchising? We might as well hire a bunch of managers out there that we can hire and fire. What works about it is that person in their market who owns it both mentally and physically, and that is their livelihood. That is how they're growing, and they're going to make those decisions based on those needs.
Sure. Very, very well said. And so many, hear about franchise organizations and they hear about control issues. And it's not so much as we know to control the individuals and the hours they work. And but, of course, we want to make sure there's, quality of product and a high level of customer service, because the number one thing as franchisors or one of the top things that we have to do as franchisors is protect the integrity of the trademark, because obviously not doing so would adversely affect every franchisee throughout the system, which leads to the point of franchise disputes. And when you look at the brands that are being pointed out in some of these proposed actions, you have to go back to what we've spoken about, on a personal call, and what I've spoken about with Dina and Mark listening. It's about culture, and you have to get back to, is it the right culture in the organization? Is the franchisor truly aware, cognizant, and do they live by the interdependency of the franchise relationship? And when I look at the brands that are being mentioned as having quote-unquote problems, you can tell that there are cultural issues there, and there's not that interdependency, or at least it's not being communicated as such, and there becomes a barrier. So, I'll ask you the $1 million question. How important is the right culture in a franchise organization?
Culture is everything. I have often said that decisions are easy when you have a set of values to follow. And I would rather be in a company that has a set of values that sometimes I make mistakes and I step outside of value, and then I have to wake up the next morning and start all over again. But I'd rather work in a company that has a set of values that sometimes we don't get perfectly right than a company that has no values, so you have nothing to get right. And those decisions, I'm at part of the Dwyer Group, and the reason I joined that company and joined our company is I love our values. We call it living rich with respect, integrity, customer focus, and having fun in the process. And under each one of those is a set of values. We actually recite those anytime we have 3 or more associates that are meeting, or we're meeting with a group of franchisees. We will actually go through our entire set of values. So the very first value is we live a code of values by treating others as we'd like to be treated. And then the next one is by listening with the intent to understand what is being said and acknowledging that what is said is important to the speaker, and on and on. And my personal favorite one is operating in a responsible manner above the line, because it's not just legally what we're supposed to do, it's the spirit and intent of doing the right thing. When you have these values, and Dina does this beautifully well, all these people who value values, who it's important to them to do the right thing, and these values resonate with them and mean something to them, they are drawn to the Dwyer Group because they absolutely see the value there, and they want to be part of something that's bigger than who they are. And so then I hear this from my franchisees time and again when I ask them, what made you pick Mr. Reuter? And almost always in part of that conversation it's a set of values that meant something to me, and I wanted to be part of something that was greater. And so what happens is you draw these really great people who you have these set of rules and this culture of this is who we are. And we now what happens, I've got a group of franchisees who believe and are drawn into those set of values, and they're hiring and bringing people on who believe and are drawn to those set of values. And that is how we interact with the customer with those set of values. Do we get it right every day? No. Many a night I go to bed saying, I've got to do this one better. One of the ones that we joke about is one of our values is speaking calmly and respectfully without profanity or sarcasm. And sometimes you got to say, okay, I got to start all over again. We actually, as leaders, we will tell people on our team, if you see me breaking a value, just beep me, and we'll joke and say beep, and it's just a reminder that I'm going off where we really want to be. And so when you have those values, and they're from the top down, they're from the bottom up, and they're in everything we do, we don't have a meeting, we don't have a conversation that our values don't come up. And so it gets very easy to make those decisions, whether it's my technician who's in somebody's home. One of our values is continuously striving to maximize internal and external customer loyalty. So my technician who's in the home says, I want to maximize this loyalty. What can I do to make the customer happier? I'm going to pick up this newspaper as I'm walking toward their home, and I'm going to hand it to them, or I'm going to offer to take the trash out for this lady as I head out, because that will maximize the customer loyalty. And I ask myself as the president, what can I do to maximize that customer loyalty with my franchisees? How can I ensure that they're engaged and happy with where they are? And so it's at every level. None of us have only one or two of those values that we follow. It's all of those. I think culture is everything in an organization.
It's so refreshing to see an organization and the people in the organization, like the Dwyer Group and its brands, not only, talk the talk, but walk the walk. I go into, many different franchise organizations' offices, and I see, a mission statement on the wall, and see a plaque about vision, and even some that have values. And yet nobody in the organization even understands or even remembers what it is. And here, and I know you're not reading off anything, you're just reciting it because it's second nature. I was impressed.
We call it by heart with heart. You need to know the values by heart with heart, and we actually give rewards to people who can say them by heart with heart, and we track it. And right now in our organization, right at about 60% of our organization has our set of values completely memorized. When you say them 2 or 3 times in a day, and you go back to, I'm struggling with this issue here, and one of our values is communicating honestly and with purpose, and I need to be purposeful and honest and direct in this communication. When you start talking about that and doing it, it gets very easy to know what they are.
Sure, it's living it, right?
Yes.
It's living it. And, a matter of fact, when I think it was Mark Liston, I had met him at a franchise event for the first time. I think he had been recently had come on board with Glass Doctor, one of the Dwyer brands. And he gave me his card, and on the back of the card was a code of values. And I thought that was very impressive.
Back of my card has the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's there front and center every day. And you guys are, not only talking the talk, but you're walking the walk. And I think that really popped up. I had Dina on the show right after Undercover Boss had aired. And we kind of joked about that. And, a lot of people think that, a lot of these shows are staged. So I was real happy that, Dina was really giving some insight and said, I was shocked when, I heard my franchisee say some of the things that, he said that obviously were a little bit off course. But just like you said, do we do things right all the time? No. But, we realize it and we come back to center and try to make those improvements every day. And by doing so, you could just tell it's natural. It's something that's part of everyday life at the Dwyer Group. And my hat's off to everybody in that organization, leadership on down and all the way back up. It's just remarkable and a tremendous model to follow and emulate. And I know I tell a lot of the brands I work with, you want to emulate a brand, these are the brands that you emulate, and they're pretty much the Dwyer Group.
I have to say it was was one of the probably most satisfying moments of my life. I would run into Dwyer Group people, and every person I ran into would talk about the values, and they were special people. They were people that I wanted to be around. They were smart. They were hard drivers, and they had these set of values that they just wouldn't waver from. And so when I said yes and moved over to the Dwyer Group, you had that little pit in your stomach, like, please let this be true. Please let me come over and see that how they live this really is so. And probably one of my most satisfying moments was realizing that I was part of a company that was what they said they were. And it was similar to what I experienced in the Marine Corps, was a group of people that are focused on the same thing, and the same thing is about doing the right thing and holding one another accountable for doing the right thing. And I'm very biased, but it's why I love this company.
Well, I totally understand it and get it. We are live on Franchise Today. My guest is Mary Kennedy Thompson, the president of Mr. Rooter Plumbing and the executive vice president of the Dwyer Group, and we're talking some about culture. Mary, the Dwyer Group, big, powerful, yet still family. It's interesting that the more I talk with people from the Dwyer Group, I hear about friendships that have been established beyond the corporate walls, so to speak. And it truly is like one big family. And the thing that gets me about other franchise organizations that claim that franchisees are like family, I often say, God, if that's how you treat family, I don't want to be part of your family. And that goes back to, talking the talk and walking the walk. But how important is it, especially with multiple brands? So obviously, some people have, different interests that, might own a Mr. Rooter or own one of the other brands like Glass Doctor, and might not, cross brands, so to speak. But with a company like the Dwyer Group, that, how do you leverage those multiple brands to make the whole worth even more the sum of its parts?
And the whole is worth more than some of its parts. That's a good way of putting it. There are a lot of different ways we leverage it. It starts at the top, and it works across every single franchisee. So, for instance, I always said, they say it's lonely at the top, not at the Dwyer Group, because at the Dwyer Group I have 6 other fellow presidents that I can pick their minds, ask them how they do that. I recently just stepped into the executive vice president role where the brands roll underneath me, and I see myself as a player coach. My job is to share those best practices, get our presidents together, and we do that regularly. We have monthly meetings that are designed just for us to share things that we're doing that work well, that we can leverage across all the different brands. We also have some groups within our franchise groups that meet within their markets and meet regularly to market together, to share best practices, to share ideas. We have a leadership summit we do in the beginning of each year where we take the top 10% of our franchisees. We call them our top guns, and what makes them a top gun isn't just your top in sales. It's you're growing and you have good market penetration and you're plugged into the brand, and we bring them together. We go off to a cool and fun place because we believe that play is an important part of learning. And sometimes some of the best practice sharing happens sitting poolside and saying, how are you recruiting those really good people? What are you doing to keep them? What could I do differently? And we bring them together so that they can cross-pollinate. And I want the top person in Mr. Rooter talking to the top person in Mr. Appliance, talking to the top person in Mr. Electric, and so on, because they get stronger and better for it. When we have our annual reunion, which is our convention, the first day is a Dwyer Group day, and we bring everyone together, and we bring in great speakers, and we share vision about where things are going, and we can leverage that in a way that those top franchisees have a great group to work with. So it happens at every level. We have a whole group. Every company has a Sure Start person. That's somebody who works with the new franchisees to get them started in the best possible way. That group of Sure Start managers, they meet regularly to talk about, well, what are you doing over here in AirServe and that I could be doing better over here in Mr. Rooter or better in Glass Doctor. And so it's this great place where you can. Each brand is different. What makes a plumber good and an electrician good really are very different. So they are different in that respect, but they're the same because we have this set of values and this set of sharing. One of our values is really about looking to the system for correction. And how can we look to the system and make it better and correct it and self-correct ourselves?
You mentioned the annual reunion, your annual convention. And I know there's a lot of, hoopla that goes on around it. I don't even think, I've never been to one, but from what I've heard, it's second to none. It truly is like a family reunion. And when you talk about family, strong families celebrate together. They pray together. They also deal with less than desirable times together, often, catastrophe. And I know the Dwyer Group family recently had a major problem with one of the brand presidents, and I understand there was a very inspiring speech at the Dwyer Group convention. But I'll allow you to fill in the details because I don't think I could do it justice.
Oh, my goodness. So we have our president of Mr. Appliance. His name is Doug Rogers. I call him the Amazing Doug because everything about him is amazing. He's amazing in spirit. He's very close, has very, very close to his faith, very close to his family, and very close to the Dwyer Group. And avid bicyclist, you could almost put him as an extreme athlete, was riding, 50 miles a day in some days, and was with a group and on a very fast ride, and one of his wheels got loose, and he went off what he thought was into a safe path on the grass and had a catastrophic bicycling accident that broke his back and paralyzed him. And I still remember getting the call. Every president rallied around him immediately. We all, people within the Dwyer Group, we took turns. He ended up being in the hospital down in Temple, or up in Temple, no, down in Temple, and we all took turns going to visit him every chance we had. He has an amazing family and support network, and we all just rallied around him. But what's amazing is Doug. Doug is one of those people that, he says, God is good all the time, and this is the path I'm supposed to be on, and has never had one moment of a pity party. What I loved about the Dwyer Group was not once did we say, well, Doug's not going to come back as president, because we all knew we're a close group. Our groups, whether it's presidents' groups or vice presidents or our franchise consultants, we play together. We go out and we go to concerts together and we go to restaurants together, and we choose to be around each other because we like being around each other, and that's part of our culture, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. And
right.
We knew Doug well enough to know he'd come back, and what doctors said would take a year for him even to consider coming back to work took him 11 weeks.
Wow.
And, yes. And so at Reunion, the top award that can be given is the Don Dwyer Award. He's our founder, and he passed away in '94. And it's a leadership award, and it can be given to a franchisee. It can be given to someone on one of the associates. It's people who have displayed extreme leadership and to the betterment of the company and shown a better way. And through this whole thing, everything that happened with Doug, he was a leader. He never cried for himself. He kept his company strong. His vice president of operations, Mary Kennedy Thompson, who's amazing and strong leader herself, stepped up. His entire team said, "What do you need?" He had franchisees that flew and drove to go see him because they were so close to him and had to see him, and said, "We're here and we support you." And he said, "I'm here and I support you too." And so he won the Don Dwyer Award at Reunion this year. And really it's not because of what happened to him on his bicycling accident. It's because of who he is. He's an amazing human being. And being part of that ceremony, all the presidents came up on stage with him. It was almost an out-of-body experience, watching all the franchisees give him a standing ovation, watching all the team giving a standing ovation. And not once was it considered that, he's a paraplegic. It was, he's a leader. And that's the type of people that are here. And I loved Joe DePinto with 7-Eleven. He recommended a book a number of years ago called The Servant. and it's all about leading with love. And I've always gone back to that, because when you lead with love, you don't necessarily give people to give them what they need, and you make sure that you are always looking out for not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them. And Doug certainly is one of those people, but we saw it across the board about how everyone rallied for him, rallied alongside him, and I love they had a candle. They had electronic, those candles that look like real candles now. They put two candles, one in his office and one in his hospital room, because the team said, as long as you're gone, we're going to keep the candle lit.
That's awesome. I mean, it's such a catastrophic story, obviously, the beginning of it. But, obviously the way Doug is coming out of this, and I can't wait for the day to meet him. But the way he's coming out of this, I mean, certainly is just tremendous leadership, qualities. But I also have to think further and say, what happens if something like this had happened in a different organization and not the Dwyer Group? I think it's just kudos to and it's more than kudos, lack of a better word, to the Dwyer Group, to Dina, to her dad, to everybody there, that creates this type of organization where somebody like Doug, going through what he did, is able to come back, and probably come back in mind stronger than ever. So
that's the beauty of it, that he has so much to offer our company. Why would we ever want to lose that? And I think when you have a set of values, part of those set of values is making sure you value your people, because your people, companies don't build companies, people build companies. And how do we value our people?
Yeah, I agree. But you just think of somebody in those type of circumstances that, maybe is working with a company that the culture isn't quite what it should be. Maybe they don't want to come back. And so I just, things happen for a reason. It's hard to understand what the Lord has in store for us. As they said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's hard to deal with at times. I'm kind of just shaking a little bit talking about this. And it's difficult, but my hat's off to everybody. And I think it's just a testament to Doug individually and to the organization being what it is.
Well, as the economy continues to improve, I hear people say it's hard to find good people. And that's not, while it's something we always have to pay attention to, it's not our problem, because when you have that culture, the good people flock to you and want to be part of it. And I heard someone say once, you're an employer of choice when someone offers someone on your team more money and they choose to stay with you, because it's not about the money. It's about belonging to something that you get to participate and contribute to, and the total is greater than any one of us individually are.
Yep, absolutely. So let's also talk about celebrations. It's common knowledge that the Dwyer Group went through a recent change in ownership, and as is fitting with the Dwyer Group, some of that reward was shared throughout the organization. If you could just touch on that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, we're so excited to have Riverside as a private equity partner. I very much like them as a company. They're all about growth and putting good resources in our hands so we can grow and be smarter and stronger. And even in the first couple of months we've worked with them, it has been a remarkably great experience. And so I could not be happier about it. And what I loved, and this to me, if I had someone said, tell me about the Dwyer Group, tell me one story that would help me understand the heart and soul of the Dwyer Group, I would tell this story. So as the executive team was negotiating and finalizing the deal with Riverside, Dina and the executive team went to Riverside and said, if we're going to benefit from this, we want our employees to benefit as well. And we were going to ask you to pull $1 million aside that we can share in bonus with all of our associates here at the Dwyer Group, because when it's a win, it needs to be a win for everybody. And so on the day that the business sold and everything was announced, we had a company-wide meeting, and Dina and Mike Bidwell stood up and said, we're going to split that $1 million with all of you. And it wasn't split with people who had any kind of stock options or any kind of benefit. It was the ones who haven't had that chance. And I thought that was just remarkable, because it would have been so easy just to overlook that and say, well, this is part of doing business. But the way Dina and the executive team and Mike, our CEO, looks at it is our company is our people. And so I remember reading a letter from one of the people on our team that said, I've been going through a tough time. I had to fix something in my house. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to, and this was magic for me, and I will never forget that. And that's, to me, we're going to spend 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day in our company working and making something better and growing something. And that's time away from your family. You better make sure your time spent away from your family is remarkable, because you're paying for it with time away from your family. And I don't begrudge that time, because I know I'm part of something bigger.
Yep, it was remarkable. When I read that, I was, I was proud. I really was. I was proud, and I, basically have nothing to do with the Dwyer Group, besides, friendships, which is not nothing, but I was proud. I thought that was really great. Beyond words for certain, just truly great. You mentioned earlier. Go ahead.
I just say it's the way it should be.
It is. It is the way it should be. And, a couple of times I found myself, as you were talking about different experiences and perspective at the Dwyer Group, I was thinking to myself, remarkable. And I almost said that. And I didn't want to say it specifically because I'm thinking just what you just said. It's the way it should be. And time after time, I have a hard time understanding why, and specifically franchise organizations, because of the interdependency of a relationship, truly like a family, working off each other, playing off each other, crying together, celebrating together, etc. It's like, why isn't it? Why isn't it like that across every franchise organization? And if it was, the things we talked about at the beginning of the show, different, laws that they're trying to get enacted, it wouldn't be an issue.
And we also hold one another accountable, because if you think about if you're a leader or you're in an organization and you're there to serve others, part of how you serve others is you hold them accountable to what they say they're going to do, to what they promise. One of our values is making only agreements we're willing, able, and intend to keep. And we hold each other accountable to that. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that my team helps me hold myself accountable to being a stronger, better leader and doing the right things for our franchisees. And we hold our franchisees accountable, and they hold us accountable back. It goes both ways. A great accountability relationship is never a one-way relationship. Yeah,
it can't be. And I know with a strong military background that you had, I'm sure, some of this was a fairly easy transition, as we joked about when we got on the air and we were both on the line very early, and you said late's not, I think you said late's not in your vocabulary or something to that effect.
Yes.
So tell me, and I know the Dwyer Group, does a lot with the Vet Fran program, and they're very passionate about, working with veterans, and one of the leading organizations, if not the leading organization, in working with veterans. First of all, why the passion as an organization, and from Dina's perspective as the leader, why the passion?
Well, Vet Fran was founded by Don Dwyer Sr. Back in 1991 when we went into the first Gulf War, and I was still in the Marine Corps at the time. I remember those times, and I look back and I'm so appreciative that he thought enough to say what he said was, we've got to give back to our servicemen and women. They're out serving our country. They deserve the chance to small business ownership. And he brought a group of franchisors together and said, we got to do something. We all got to offer our best discount to allow those veterans to get into small business ownership. And I can tell you, it made all the difference in my life being a franchisee. I can't even imagine the trajectory on my life if franchising hadn't found me. I'm forever grateful. For me, it's the great American dream. And it kind of, the program went for a while, and then when Don passed away, it faltered for a while. And then after 9/11, Dina stepped up and said, you know what, we need to make sure we're doing this right. And she really involved a lot of the IFA. And for the IFA, it's been a strategic program of theirs for more than 20 years now. It's not the cool flavor of the day. It's what we've been doing. And it's about giving our veterans the best opportunity. And what I loved was in 2011, we partnered with the First Lady on her Hiring Our Heroes program and realized that not all veterans get to go right into small business ownership. As you probably well know, and most people know, the military is not the best payer in the world. I think I started as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. My starting pay was $18,000 a year.
Wow.
When I said that once, my daughter said a month, and I said no, a year. And so you know, they need the opportunity. They've served our country, and they deserve for us to give them the power to prosper. They're not asking for a handout. They don't want a handout. What they want is an opportunity. And so we partnered with the First Lady to create Operation Enduring Opportunity, which was the franchising community, because we know 1 out of every 8 jobs in the United States is created through franchising, where we agreed between the franchisor and the franchisee side, we would hire veterans and we would look and give them opportunity. And the First Lady was looking to hire 100,000 veterans total in all of business. We came back and said, we think we can do 75,000. I remember people saying, ooh, that's a big commitment. Are we going to do it? And, you know, what if we've overpromised? And she couldn't believe we'd offered that much. Well, and that was by 2014. On our last count, we're over more than 155,000 veterans hired into franchising at that time. And, I mean, we blew those out of the ballpark. And I'm so proud of franchising. I'm so proud of the IFA. I'm so proud of that. And I think when you ask why the passion at the Dwyer Group, it's because people like Don, like Dina, like myself, we have a lot of veterans here, and we believe that part of our gratitude is a big part of living a full and happy life. And we want to be grateful to those veterans who have served our country and sacrificed for our country, and we want to give them the power to prosper. In the Dwyer Group, we've brought on 250, we might be like 251 now, veterans into franchising, and we've given more than $2 million in discounts to veterans because we truly believe that we owe a debt of gratitude to those servicemen and women who have served our country. And my dad was a veteran, my sister's a veteran, my husband's a veteran, my sister-in-law's a veteran. I served in the military. I truly believe that we cannot forget what they have done for us.
No, we and continue to do for us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
More than in the next 5 years, more than 1 million servicemen and women will transfer out of the military. Oftentimes, if I'm talking to civilians about this, I will use this analogy because they get it. When I first went in the military, I went to jump school and I jumped out of airplanes. And my first day leaving the military was scarier for me than the first time I jumped out of an airplane. And
it's interesting you say that. I've very informally, on a local level, I've worked with some veterans over the years in what I call, transitioning veteran. It was transitioning veterans, and it was just understanding what the opportunities are out there for them, because it is so difficult. And of course, I know you could explain it much more than I am, because I didn't have the honor of being in the military. But I know from the outside looking in that it's very, very defined, very regimented, very structured. And God, our world is becoming less and less structured every day. So it's got to be a difficult transition coming out of the military.
Well, they're often on a base somewhere away from where they joined the military. So you've got, somebody who's leaving who might be on a base in California and their family is in Pennsylvania, and they don't even know where to start. I didn't know where to start. it was a very frightening time. I remember the first time I got sick, I had never been on civilian insurance. I didn't even know how to call the doctor and use it. I'm not a dumb woman. I just could. Yeah. It's a lot to learn. You're learning how to reintegrate into your society, into your community, into the jobs, into all these things that are different. They make great franchisees and great employees because they know systems and they understand responsibility and commitment. And so they're wonderful to work with. We just got to give them that opportunity. They don't know where to start.
Yeah, we're as much as we're doing. Certainly, we could do a lot more. Certainly, and I think the first step, and this is really an elementary step, and I know I try to do it as much as possible, is thank our current servicemen that you see in the airports in uniform and thank them for their service. I do it. I also do it for first responders as well, because they're certainly not all doing it for the money, and they're putting their life on the line each and every day so that we could wake up every day without even giving a thought about the freedoms that we enjoy.
Yeah, we actually started a program, a first responder program as well, to give them opportunity if they were so interested, because we believe that they're serving our country too. And it's interesting, you mentioned about ovations. To me, I cannot, a couple times where troops are coming back from overseas and everyone stands and claps, and I'm not a tearful person, but that always gets me deep in my soul. And I think every time we think about giving an ovation to our servicemen and women, we should think about how can we turn that ovation into a vocation. Because
that's good. I like that.
Because they have earned it the hard way.
They have definitely earned it. You know, as we're wrapping up, and as you and I have a tendency to blow past an hour so fast without issue, which is great. Give some advice to the many startup franchisors that listen to our show about, what they need to do coming out of the box and what their long-term goals should be. And obviously we're not talking about from a financial standpoint.
Correct. Well, that's a great question. If I were talking to what I would call an emerging franchisor, I would start with remember that you need to understand and thank your franchisees because they make all things possible. And I always like what Colin Powell said, is that your front line knows more of what's going on than just about anybody else. So stay close to your franchisees, understand where their challenges are, and build a system that provides support to help them with those challenges in the best possible ways. Don't be afraid to hold your franchisees accountable, and don't be afraid to ask your franchisees to hold you accountable. Include them in your decision-making process. Have an advisory council that you are close to and talk with regularly that's made up of franchisees, and bring them together in every way possible, because the system isn't just how you deliver the service or the product to the customer. The system is the network of franchisees that will grow up together, work together, share together, and grow together. That's as much a part of the system as anything else. So make sure that you give them opportunities to get together and keep them close to one another and to your brand.
Very, very well said. Well, we're quickly running out of time, Mary, and I thank you for being my guest today. As I said, I'm honored, and I believe it was very fitting to have you as my guest as we relaunch Franchise Today ahead of our 6th year on the air. You being here today is just greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. It was certainly my pleasure, and I very much enjoy your show and enjoy having many conversations with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Remember, next week on Franchise Today, my guest is Greg Voinovich, chairman of the upcoming Franchise Update Leadership and Development Conference. I ask you to please spread the word about Franchise Today, and especially our new date and time, which is Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Visit our Facebook page, and also follow us on Twitter at Fran News Radio. Please also check out my personal blog, franchiseessentials.com. That's with a common E between franchise and essentials, or just visit fmdpro.com, and it'll take you to the blog, which is also dubbed the Franchise Professionals Resource. Franchise Today is a production of Franchise Foundry. Until next week, I'm Paul Segreto, wishing you the best, the very best, in this great thing we call franchising. Franchise Today is out.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.